1 week to go. Stage 2 almost done. I'm just going to run through a couple of things on how I see it and give you an update, general classification. Okay, I'll start off with the red Holstein loop. You can see it over here. So Grant lying in first, John, you see John Zemke coming from nowhere at 1:33.25, and Ian, very big surprise run of 1:35 coming in. Andrew drops down to 5th place with a puncher on his run, and then Vacation getting into his way. So really nothing in it, and the big loop still determining a lot of the general classification. Okay, the next one I'm going to Golf Course Down. The downhill section for this one, you see Andrew also 5:15, smashing time down there. Interesting line, however, cutting out those corners. We were there today having a look and see what it is. Greg E-Bike Ritz, he's 5:23, 8 seconds off the pace, and then Grant lying in 3rd place. You see he's 16 seconds off the pace. Shared with Graham. Graham seems to like this because he actually shared the stage 1 also, and he seems to be sharing stage 2, also 3rd place, becoming a bit of a habit. I must admit I'm privy to some plans that he's put in place for this week in order to dethrone Ritz. Seems to be a bit of a challenge that's coming up between them. Another thing, yeah, 5:41 with Ian and myself, we got 3 seconds between us. I was on my way down there today, however, lost my front wheel on one of the corners and ate dust, which blew my chances. But could be back during the week. Might have to see what I can do 1 or 2 afternoons. Andrew, though, has given me some tips on a line on how to cross that river cut crossing. Austin and myself were down there, so we are most probably 5 to 10, maybe even 15 seconds quicker on that entire run from their tips. So looking at some eagerly contested runs also between. So if you go a little bit further down, so if you look at between Colin and Austin, 1 second between them, and then Clint, Jared, Henning and JJ, you need to get riding, beat the average of the week at least. Either that or you shouldn't have ridden. I'm sure that you can get better than 9 minutes. You guys must stop riding Miss Daisy down there and actually start riding a bicycle. Next one I'm looking at on stage 2 is the Madiba loop. So if I filter that up, we've got Andrew 13:31. That is absolutely flying. Graham came in there today knocking Ritz off his 2nd place, and on a 13:59, so nearly 46 seconds or 46 seconds quicker than Greg, really showing him who's boss. Colin, however, the secret assassin, he's sitting here just 4 seconds off the pace with a week to go. Let's see what happens. Seems like the top 4 seem to be in a world of their own. And when I have a look later, I see that Ian is in 5th position, 44 seconds off the pace down here. And there's another race that's coming up for 5th, 6th and 7th, only split by 7 seconds. So let's see how this ends up. Greg, yes, riding both rivers does help. I did it today, which saved me nearly 15 or just over 15 seconds. I thank you and I owe you that. And hopefully we'll be able to keep you at bay on the general classifications, which I'll come to later. A surprise is that Austin sitting in 9th place with a mediocre 16:41 sitting over here. I rode with him today on that one. He was really out of sorts and not really in his best form. So I'm sure he could get there and do another ride that's quicker than that. And then we look down here at the Paddy Gills, Grant, Brett and Birgit, all still sitting here in yellow, not riding yet. So it seems like the strategy is working by letting them get off their farm and come into town and try and beat the townies. So let's see what happens. They all said that they're going to come in during the week, big plans. If they don't, so be it. Okay, the last and final one. Let's see how the total is going for everyone. So Grant number 1, Andrew number 2, Ian, surprise, shock and horror, sitting at number 3. The question is, can he hold it? Let's see, 4 minutes between top 6. So if you look at the top 6 of the guys here sitting here, 4 minutes. John's Madiba loop, however, if he can go and break 6 minutes on the Madiba loop and do a 13:47, there and thereabouts, it'll take him to 1 hour 53, which will put him pretty much in first place. Yes, Grant hasn't done it yet, but let's have a look and see. They still have to get in their Ford Ranger and come to town. Long way, long distance. I'm not sure whether they travel well as a family and a group. So let's go. Yeah, and then if Grant does happen to come, he can then push Ritz a little bit. He needs a little bit of time, because when you look at the general classification, you'll see what's coming. Okay, now I'm going through to the big boy loop for the general classification. Andrew, Grant and John all pretty much first, second and third. I did this weekend, however, if you look further down here, extend my lead on Ian. So in the big boy loop I can now 44 seconds up. Birgit still ahead of Greg. So they're having their own race in the back. And that also seems to be hotting up. But the big boy loop seems to really determine the general classification. You don't win on the downhill and the cross countries, but hell, you can surely lose on those sections. The next one I'm going to is the general classification of the downhill section, most probably the hottest contested one. Everyone wants to win the big one with big balls. So Andrew 1, Greg 2, Grant 3, Graham 4. So these guys sitting over here. However, there's 18 seconds separating them after 2 stages. Not a lot in it. There's a lot of action coming, I must admit. I ate some dust there this Saturday. Unpleasant, a little bit shaken, but I'm sure we'll get it going. One thing I must point out is that the technical committee has got together, and we have a real surprise for stage 3, and it will separate the men from the boys, because you really would need a set of canooners to go and ride down this thing. Well, I heard comments from today, real mountain biking, and the faster the easier. However, if you do happen to get it wrong, you're going to have to be medevaced out of there. So let's have a look and see. Had nothing in this one, and yeah, top 4 guys going. If you sit down here, maybe a couple of seconds off the pace, but it'll be very difficult to catch the over 1 minute between everybody. But there's definitely a second group, so there's 2 races inside this race, and let's have a look. I must admit, it's been great fun watching how this thing is going to pan out, and see how it goes. If we go to the general classification on the cross-country loop, Andrew 1, Graham 2, Greg 3, Greg E-Bike Ritz 3. I suspect that the table sort of has been laid. If I was a betting man, it would be Andrew, Graham and Grant. He's going to be coming through on this stage. The big question is, can Greg E-Bike Ritz hold them off, or is he going to 4th place off the podium? This is the stage 3 one, though, is going to be the longest and toughest cross-country sector. So if you're going to do something, you better do it on this one, because the next one's going to be even harder, Greg. If we go to the general classification, so I'll sort this out. You see Andrew first, Grant second. He'll need to get around about 6 minutes when he does the Madiba loop. He'll come then to about 4:16. Still second, but at least in puncher distance of Andrew. If I look at what that loop is, very good chance that unless he's on Conti tyres, he's most probably going to get another blowout. There's a lot of rocks on that thing. Graham needs 35 minutes on red on Saturday, so he's got 1 weekend to go. Hopefully the weather's good. And he should then get to around about 4:20, so he also will be sitting somewhere in the mix, sitting between these guys. John seems like he's also round and roundabout. So this is the A group. So the A group then goes into Andrew, Grant, John, Graham, with Brett. Brett goes and gets off the farm and goes and rides the single track and needs 8 minutes. He would then be 4:37, so he would be coming in somewhere around here. So quite clearly a split has happened. A group. B group seems to be, if you have a look here and looking at some of the stuff, Austin, Ryan, myself, Ian, Anton and Greg. Assuming Greg gets a 1:45 on the red, he would then get 20 minutes better than where he is sitting down here middle table. and he would then jump up to somewhere around about the 4:45 group, which puts him in touch with the B group. Anton also hasn't done the Madiba loop, so he would have to go and get at least 6 minutes off the average. So with Flu, looks like he's either in or out. But if he does get 6 minutes, he goes to 4:43, which takes him towards the top of the middle group, which seems to be sitting somewhere between 4:40 and 4:45, with 1 weekend to go. All right, everybody, there is 1 weekend to go, and it's only a Saturday. Another thing that has been coming up, so a lot of banter has been going around. So with myself and Ian on the general classification, I know I'm nearly just under a minute ahead of him at the moment. Also, I would hate to lose to Greg. It's become a little bit of a passion to get him down, and I don't care if I beat him by 1 second on the general classification total, as long as I beat him. Greg seems to be having some downhill challenge with Graham. Graham now is ferociously trying to get him off the podium. Most probably we'll also be looking at pushing a little bit on the third one. Graham also trying to chase this elusive John Zemke. He's never met him. All he knows is that he's ahead of him, and it seems to be a bit of a passion to get him off the thing. If we look further down the bottom of here, yes, Birgit and Greg still having their own race. If there's terrible weather or happens to flu comes or whatever it is, it looks like then Greg will be out of the B group. He'll be then chasing the C group and be sitting with Birgit. Anton and Colin further down. Let's have a look and see. All right, 1 week to go. Enjoy, and I will talk to you after stage 2 is finished, and we'll see where everybody lies.